Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee and today I want to talk about the hobby's gatekeepers and throwing open the gates. So being a gatekeeper often has negative connotations. They're portrayed as traditionalists who hold the doors shut to newbies. And they take it upon themselves to decide who does and does not belong within a community or who can have access rights. And that it also can define the identity of a particular group, and that also holds some people out. But being a gatekeeper, could it be possibly a positive thing? Could we use it in a positive way? Should the hobby's gatekeepers actually be people holding the doors open and beckoning newbies inside? So what is a gatekeeper? Now, there are different types of gatekeeper. I'm going to mention a few here, but there are literally hundreds of different types. You've got the old grognards who remember the early days of the hobby and resist all new products as not real wargaming. Then you've got the Puritans who only play one rule set and anything else is a totally different hobby to them, and they don't see how there's any connection. Power gamers who've forgotten what it's like to start off in the hobby and will mock and deride newbies for their ignorance and their stupidity, and therefore force them back out of the hobby. You've got the mechanics who rate complexity above everything else and don't understand what it's like to be a new gamer and searching for something simple to get into the hobby. And then you've got the armchair historians in my particular field who look down on everyone else who don't own a library and have never read original documents. There are many, many more types, but they're just an example of the sort of people who quite innocently and sometimes unconsciously act as gatekeepers, keeping new players out of the hobby. Now, it has to be said that humans are tribal creatures by nature. It was true when we were cavemen and it's still true today. But humans also build communities and we draw strength from the diversity that comes within a community. And there's a constant conflict between the two sides of our nature. And the wargaming community is no different. And while it is a broad church, it also has tribes which come with their own gatekeepers and keep people out of the wider gaming community. Now, I like to think of the gaming community like a large, complex and diverse city with a wall around the outside, but multiple roads leading in through multiple gates, hundreds of different gateways into the city. But that city is divided into a virtually unlimited number of sectors, and each sector controls a gate of its own and therefore has its own gatekeepers. But once inside the city, the visitor can move around fairly easily, or at least easier than an outsider, from one sector to another, discovering new games, new communities, new groups of friends, new clubs. But only if they get past that particular gatekeeper at the beginning, when they arrived at the city walls. Now, I'd like to say something here to potential newbies who've just come into the hobby and maybe discovered this video, maybe this is their first foray into the hobby. Your hobby is what you make it. No one should be telling you you're doing it wrong. By all means, take advice from people who have got more experience or a wider range of experiences. Advice is great, but don't get them to tell you how you should do your hobby. Do it your way. It's your hobby. You should enjoy your game exactly the way you want to. If you prefer fantasy wargaming to historicals, that's fine. If you enjoy the game and not the historical research, that's fine. If skirmish games rather than big battles are your thing, well, you've guessed it. You can probably figure out what I'm going to say by now. The list goes on. Only you get to tell you what your hobby should look like. But what can we do to keep the gates open to new players? Well, be a different kind of gatekeeper. Fling open the hobby's doors and put out a welcome sign. Write blogs, make silly videos, reach out with demo games. But whatever you choose to do, above all, be an advocate for the hobby. Not just your particular niche. There's nothing wrong with having a niche interest, but be an advocate for the whole hobby. Without judgment, without preconceptions. Because once newbies have got inside the community, those gamers will discover loads of other cool stuff. You know, they will move from one part of the hobby to another until they find their niche, and that's how the hobby will ultimately grow. So as usual, I'm going to end the video by saying, what do you think? You know, have you encountered gatekeepers within the hobby? Did you have to overcome that to get into the hobby, or have you seen other people holding people out by barring the doors? And you know, as usual, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below or over my blog on Big Lee's Miniature Adventures. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and share. And if you want to keep up to date with weekly content from this channel, please tap the bell notification icon. So until next week, stay safe, get in as many games as you can, and of course, keep rolling high.